I recording started. Yes. So intellectual property rights is the need of the hour, or something that is very crucial and very important when it comes to everything that goes around in the world. Uh, that brings us to the point where it becomes very necessary for us as members and students of the CA fraternity to have a working knowledge and to also be aware of the nitty-gritties of IPR and its laws, both in India and, if possible, to some extent internationally. So, keeping in mind these aspects, Thane branch of ICI and Ratnagiri branch of ICI, we decided to keep a session on intellectual property rights (IPR). We'll be having a session, a 2-hour session today and a 2-hour session tomorrow. Before, I know everyone is waiting for the speaker to take over and start, but before we start with the session as a whole, I would like to welcome on the screen CA Prasad Achrekar. He is the chairman of Ratnagiri branch of WRC. He will be welcoming all of us and all of you members and kickstart our event. So, Prasad sir, if you could please take over. Sir, you are muted. Prasad sir, you are muted.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm audible.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Thank you. So, welcome all the participants and good evening. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome all the participants in the today's seminar organized by Thane branch and Ratnagiri branch of WRC on the intellectual property rights. In the today's dynamic and ever-growing business world, it is very important to have the practical knowledge and to know the legal aspects also in respect of the intellectual properties. Those are the rights which are associated with the intangible assets created by the human intellect. We know all popularly some of the IPRs, so copyrights, patents, and all that. So, as a professional student or the member, we should have the working knowledge and also the practical intricacies of what actual IPRs are and how the practical knowledge of the IPR is. So I welcome all the participants and our today's lecturer, CA Rajesh Haldipur sir. So we are here, and first of all, I would like to thank Thane branch, entire Thane branch team, especially Chairman Swapnil Kolte sir and entire team Thane for giving us the opportunity to arrange such seminar in joint. So I welcome all the participants and also our today's speaker, CA Rajesh Haldipur sir, and welcome on behalf of the Thane branch as well as Ratnagiri branch in this seminar. We are having 2-hour seminar today and 2-hour seminar tomorrow. So I hope after the seminar, all we are having value addition with respect to the legal matters as well as practical issues in the IPR. Okay. So with this, I welcome all the participants and I hand over the next part to CA Apte sir. Sir, over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm extremely sorry, everyone. I forgot to introduce myself. I am CA Atharva Apte. I'm a managing committee member at Thane branch of ICI. And for the year 2023, I have been entrusted with the responsibility of the students. So I've taken up the post of the Vikasa chairman of Thane branch of ICI. Next, I would like to invite on the screen CA Shama Walawalkar. She will be introducing our speaker for the day. So, CA Shama, if you could please take over. You are muted, Shama. You are muted. You need to unmute.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes, very clear.
Yeah. So, thanks, Atharva. I'll take it forward. So, good afternoon, everyone. It gives me a pleasure to introduce such a knowledgeable speaker, which is CA Rajesh Haldipur, sir. He's a qualified chartered accountant with 36 years of experience. He was in full-time practice for first 18 of these years, during which he wrote 5 books. Thereafter, he switched careers and embarked on a varied career that has seen him become many more things to go. He was an executive editor of a tax quarterly journal and later of a management journal. He's a dean of a reputed B school, head of knowledgeable management, learning and education in PwC, India's tax and regulatory practice, a director on the board of India's then third largest multi-state cooperative bank, director the product development at a well-known tax and corporate law portal, developer of knowledge-based products in field of tax, banking, law, and accounting, a consultant in a field of intellectual property, having done education and training in IPR for the corporate executives, IP portfolio valuations, drafting of patent application in the field of mechanical engineering. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to introduce you, sir. Now I ask Atharva to take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shama. So with that, I request CA Rajesh Haldipur, sir, to start our event. We are very much excited for his session. Yes, sir, please go ahead. Sir, you are muted. Sir, you're still muted.
Okay, yes. Now can you hear me?
Yes, sir, very much.
Very good. CA Apte ji, CA Achrekar ji, and CA Kshama ji. Thanks for the introduction, the invitation, and the very prompt, on-time beginning of this program. I cannot therefore commit the sin of finishing late. So let me get going and I will try and share my screen. One minute. Is the screen changed now for you all?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay. I'm sure there are many more participants. I am not that good at using this Zoom, so I don't know how many participants are there. So hi and thanks to all of you for having spent your valuable time or for having thinking that this would be valuably spent. So what I'll do now is straight away dive into the subject. I'm making certain assumptions. First is in the online medium, I have learned that there is a high, the high contrast themes are more easily readable and viewable. So therefore, I have not used fancy colors, nor have I used any transitions, which means you will be able to read the whole slide before even I complete it. So therefore, it will be easier for us to progress faster. You can, I don't have to go at the speed of the slowest because I'll be the slowest. I won't read the content of the slide except this slide. I will try to speak around the slide content, which means that the content gives an anchor and what the way I will speak is different. I mean, what I will speak is different from what's visible. Then we'll use the phrase current development. Now, this current development is part of the topic of today. So this phrase will be interpreted very broadly. We will dwell only on very basic matter of what each type of IPR is, because I will presume that most of you already have some idea about it. So it should not be very difficult for you to catch on to what we are saying. But we will spend maybe 2 or 3 minutes on that slide about types of IPR. Now, I'm going to use the method of storytelling because I know that late in the evening after a hard day's work, if you have to sit and listen for 2 hours, it will be boring. And therefore, I'm not going to read boring sections and subsections and circulars and clauses and case law. What I'm then actually going to do is tell you stories, because storytelling is the most powerful way of understanding and most powerful way of remembering. So I want most of you to remember what I tell you stories about. Now we are looking only at some species of IPR. There are many kinds of IPR, but we are looking at only trade secrets, patents, copyrights, trademarks and designs. That's all. Trademarks, service marks and design. Okay, we are not looking at anything else. There are many others like GI, that is geographical indication. By the way, all of you students from, all of you CAs from Thane and Ratnagiri should be very happy to know that Alfonso mangoes have been given GI protection. So now they are GIs like many other 324 other items. Alfonso mangoes are GIs, especially Alfonso mangoes grown in Thane and Ratnagiri. So therefore, both these districts are well represented in that GI. You know what we call as Hapus mangoes. Okay. Intellectual property rights referred. Can you see the full screen or should I shut off this? This panel which I am trying to move on screen, is it disturbing your view of the screen? I'm presuming no, because everybody must have been muted, so they can't answer. Anyway, so intellectual property rights refers to legal rights given to an inventor, etc., etc. So please read that. And one important thing about intellectual property rights is that you can acquire intellectual property rights, but defending it is your responsibility. Government is not going to help you defend your rights. For example, we all think that patent is a kind of a monopoly granted on the subject matter of that patent. It is a monopoly granted, but it is a monopoly which we have to fight for. It just gives us that monopoly. If somebody else tries to break that monopoly and infringe that monopoly, then we need to fight on our own. So that is something which you must understand. That means the government is not helping you with enforcing the monopoly. That's your responsibility. Now, why IPR? The first one is itself good enough reason why we should do this. Because patent databases are a repository of almost all kinds of new knowledge. So everybody who applies for a patent, sometimes even if the patent is not granted, it will be useful knowledge for you if you can benefit from that patent. Now, also intellectual property or intellectual capital in all forms, not just IPR, but also intangible other intellectual capital, which means trade secrets, for example. Intellectual property rights called trade secrets are simply that you don't tell anybody. If you don't tell anybody, it becomes a trade secret. We'll see that more about it a little forward. But all these, the value of it is 68 to 84%. From 68 to 84%, it has risen. And COVID-19 has accelerated the trend. And the intangible asset market value share of intangible assets now is 90% of the S&P 500 market value. That's a huge thing. It means, like, if the same thing happened in India, then it means that the IPR value will be 90% of the market cap of the NSE or the BSE. It's that big. It's not yet that big in India. Now, I would like you to read this very simply and understand that patents and copyright are the ones which are the most valuable, but trade secret are the most ubiquitous. That means every business has trade secrets. And trade secrets are not technology related. It could be anything. For example, a list of suppliers of a particular item. If you have a list of 3 suppliers for a particular item which is suddenly out of stock, then that is like IPR. That is a trade secret. You are not going to tell, "Maine yahan se mangaya." You will say, "Maine China se mangaya." Okay. So what happens is that trade secrets are the best form of intellectual property because you don't have to spend anything. You just have to ensure that it is secret. You just have to ensure that nobody gets to know what you know. Okay, the fact that nobody else knows makes it a secret and makes it valuable. And it can be anything. For example, I know one lady who ran one business alone because she alone knew how to make some, wax treatment for beauty treatment. No, they use wax. So she alone knew how to make that wax. So for that, she ran a business for 30, 35 years before she retired. All that she did was she kept that formula secret. So you don't have to be a Coca-Cola to be able to have an established franchise based on a trade secret. Now I have just given you all these other kinds. Copyright, patents are the most valuable of all. They last for 20 years. Copyright lasts for 60 years in India, for 60 years after the death of the last author. Of the author or after the last author, if there are co-authors. Now from the next slide onwards, I think we will begin talking more about each type. Now, trade secrets can be everywhere in your business. In fact, you should be able to, if there is a businessman who is running a business, then everything that he should be able to make an inventory of what all secrets are there which he can capitalize on. And it could be an idea, a concept, a report, a budget, blah, blah, everything. Okay, all these are trade secrets, even if they are not written down. And if they are written down, then they are copyright protected also, automatically. For copyright protection, while there is a registration available for copyright, you don't need to have anything registered to claim copyright. Copyright will be available in other ways, as long as it is written. So let's look at the next one. What questions to ask? Okay, now can you see this mu? This sign, mu sign here, is it information? It should be a question mark. I did some search and replace and it searched and replaced and I didn't notice that this was there. I'm noticing it now. Anyway, so interpret the mu as a question mark. Is it information? Did you use? So trade secrets are, you can detect them if you can, you can identify them if you answer yes to any of these. And one of the easiest way of maintaining a trade secret is to not tell to anybody and to only tell it to people who sign a NDA, that is a non-disclosure agreement. Okay. And unfortunately, trade secret is the kind of IPR which becomes valuable in terms of protection only when it is broken. So only when somebody infringes a trade secret and makes it public, you can have a cause of action against that person, a tortious cause of action, which is a civil suit. But that's all, nothing else. Okay. Trade secrets, the advantage is that it lasts forever. Lasts forever. That means you don't have to, there is no time limit for what you hold trade secrets. Patents have a life of 20 years. Copyrights have a life of 50 years in most countries, but 60 in India. that is after the death of the last author. So that means during the lifetime of the author or the creator, copyright exists, and the countdown of 50 years starts only after he dies. Now, trade secret does not prevent independent creation. Now, what does that mean? See, suppose you discover something very exciting and secret which you want to patent. Now you are in two minds. Should you apply for a patent? Because when you apply for a patent, you have to make everything public. In that patent document, you have to disclose how you did things, how do you do things, and what is the secret behind the whole thing. Now, the patent is a monopoly which is granted in return for your sharing the secret. And if all the procedural requirements are met, and you can get a monopoly for 20 years. But if you keep it a secret, if you choose to keep it a secret, then if somebody else discovers the same thing, then that person can get a monopoly, can get a patent, but not against you. Because if you can prove that it was a trade secret that you had and you had not patented it, then you can get a free of license right to use it. If you have used it or if you have invented it before the patent holder files for patent. I hope it's clear what I'm saying. Now, copyright. Copyright, unlike any other IPR form, it only protects the expression of an idea, concept, formula, fact, or theme. I mean, it doesn't protect the idea itself. It protects the writing of that idea. So suppose you have an idea and you make a note of it on even a small piece of paper, that becomes your copyright. But if you just talk about it, it is not copyright. If you just, unless it's actually a talk like this. Now, for example, a talk that I'm giving now, I can claim as a copyright if need be, unless the arrangement with the institute gives the right to the institute and not me. So therefore, that is what is copyright. Copyright does not protect the actual idea, but it protects the expression of the idea or the concept or a formula or a fact or a theme. And copyright does not protect against independent creation, which means that if you don't claim copyright and then somebody does the same thing what you did, then that somebody gets the copyright, not you. Registration is non-mandatory. And in the internet era, copyright is the weakest form of intellectual property, right? The reason is, it is so easy to copy in the era of the internet. You can share it, you can put it on YouTube, you can put it anywhere, and whatever it is, you can infringe copyright very easily. In fact, many people infringe copyright without even realizing that they are infringing it. But in these days, if you infringe a copyright which is vigorously protected by somebody, then you will pay for the ignorance. So, for example, if you were to make a copy of the latest Amir Khan movie and distribute it on YouTube, Amir Khan will slap you with a few 100 crores worth of a claim. The reason is, you have no right distributing his film. It need not even be the latest film. He has a right to distribute all his films. So he can only license it to anybody else. So, for example, on YouTube, you can see snippets of Three Idiots, which a company called Ultra is displaying. Now, that company called Ultra would have paid for that license to display that much on YouTube. Now, what advantage they get, we don't know, because YouTube is free, and I don't know how they will make money by showing Three Idiots snippets. But that is how it is. Copyright is easy to infringe. Anybody can infringe, and anybody can, but most people cannot get away. I mean, if for example, as I said, gave the Three Idiots example, copyrights are weak in the internet era. It's very difficult because now there are so many ways in which content is distributed, copyrighted content is distributed. For example, OTT platforms. In 2019 alone, subscription to OTT platforms doubled all over the US, all over India, all over the globe, all over the globe. So this is something fantastic, which you cannot imagine. Netflix and Z Live and Sony Live and all those subscriptions, they doubled, not just in India, but all over the world in just 1 year. So you can imagine if that much content is actually being streamed over the top, then it means at least quite a lot of copyrights are being infringed unless they have licensed it and are showing only licensed content. So to recognize whether it's a copyright or not, we have to first ask, is it an original expression fixed on a medium? If it's an original expression which is not fixed on a medium, for example, this session is copyright because it's being recorded, among other reasons. It's being recorded and it's being recorded on a magnetic medium somewhere. Maybe it is recorded on a cloud, but a cloud is also a server. A cloud server is also a server, and that server has a hard disk, and there is a medium. So therefore, copyright law applies. Now there are quite a few famous cases. Now begin the stories. So we have told the basics of copyrights, of IPR. Now we will begin the stories. Can look and feel be copyrighted? Apple, we all know, came out with the personal computer in 1982. In around 1990, not even 1990, it must have been earlier, in around 1983 or 84, DOS came into the market. But Windows came into the market in around 1991, which was like a copy almost of Apple. Windows 3.1 was the most widely used software of those days in the early 90s. And at that time, Apple filed a case against Microsoft for copying, saying that look and feel has been copied. The menus, the windows, the mouse, everything has been copied. That's what Apple stated in its fight against Microsoft. And this case went on for a long time, and the final decision was that look and feel cannot be copyrighted because look and feel is too abstract and too wishy-washy a concept, so that it cannot be. Now in those days, there was another company called Napster, which started a new peer-to-peer file sharing software, which was free. And your own any networked computer's spare hard disk space used to get used as a storage, and you could select from an index of all these stored data, stored content. You can select and download anything you wish onto your machine and then enjoy it. So this was after a long fight said to be illegal and infringing the copyright of the users, and therefore that Napster's business was closed down. There were many copycats like Pirate Bay and Kazaa. So you may not remember. I mean, many of you might not have been even born in that age. These were the age of the last, early days of the computers, early days of the internet. And then there was a smartphone and tablet wars. Apple filed a series of suits against Samsung. Now just look at it. It was a very funny thing. Now Apple made very excellent smartphones and tablets, quite unlike any other smartphones and tablets known till then. But yet, Samsung caught up with them. Samsung started using Android as the operating system and caught up with them. But the look and feel was very similar. Smartphones for the first time looked like a slab with no buttons. all the buttons were soft buttons, not hard buttons. Whereas look at Nokia phones, which uses a Symbian operating system. Nokia phones were full of buttons and a very small screen. And that too, that screen was not a touch screen. Some models later on came with touch screen, but it was not anything great. So these wars were very unusual wars. Why? Because 30% by value of the content in a Apple tablet or Apple smartphone, that is iPad or iPhone, 30% of the content by value was provided by Samsung. So Samsung were their major suppliers, and they filed a case against their suppliers. And guess what? In those days, Samsung was the only supplier. So Samsung could have arm twisted Apple and said nothing doing, we will continue. But then they fought the case. And when they fought the case, one of the arguments that they said was this iPhone and tablets are not a new idea. There's this movie called 2001 A Space Odyssey, which was released somewhere in 1980. In that, it was a science fiction kind of a movie. It was very similar to Star Wars. In that movie, they showed one of the characters having breakfast and looking down at the table, and as he's having breakfast, he had a slab which was showing the news, which is exactly how we use our iPad nowadays. They said that this was a concept which was already done. So what are we fighting for? We are fighting saying that it is uniquely designed. No, it is not uniquely designed. The design was already available. You copied that design. So that is what now that was a argument which won the day, and that whole fight subsided with some licensing arrangement between Apple and Samsung, so that Apple got a few more millions of dollars by way of licensing, but Samsung was allowed to continue to do business. Now in the look and feel case, which was Apple versus Microsoft, Microsoft's defense was very strange and very funny. What Microsoft said is, you are saying we copied, but you also copied. And then he said, you copied it from Xerox Corporation's Palo Alto Research Center. They did it before you, and then you got the idea from there and you developed it commercially first. But they did it before you. So how can you blame us for copying? So these were these three cases which applied to copyright law. Now, patents, these are the answers to which, questions to which, if the answer is yes, then what you have is a patent candidate. That means something you can apply for a patent for and have a chance of succeeding. Now, the government never prefers not to grant a patent, because granting a patent means giving a monopoly, which means that the rest of the citizenry has to pay for all that one person thought of. Now, all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 features, if the answer is yes, only then it is a patent candidate. Now, one of the unusual questions is, it should not be an abstract idea, a natural law, or a phenomenon. For example, what it means is that the law of gravity cannot be patented, because the law of gravity is a natural law. An abstract idea cannot be patented. A natural phenomenon cannot be patented. So we have to be clear that it's extremely difficult to get patents, but they are highly valuable. Huge benefits come to the company which gets patents. And we will see a lot of examples of those in the few slides which come forward as we go ahead. A patent, if you get a single patent, it is very good. But if you get a patent portfolio, then it is very, very good. A large portfolio in the hands of a deep-pocketed patent owner has intimidatory value. The 800-pound gorilla that you must fight to get free. It's like the moat circling a fort. You heard of Warren Buffett saying that every business which is valuable should have a moat. That means it makes it difficult for somebody to launch an attack on the fort. Now, one patent is a brick. Many patents are a protective wall that is of the fort. And this is best exemplified by the example of Gillette. Gillette has owned the shaving space, shaving kits, shaving blades, shaving razors, shaving implements, and so on and so forth. Now, how many patents will be you think they will have? This medium does not allow me to get feedback from you so easily, so I'll tell you. At one point, Gillette had more than 50 patents on a single product and the processes behind development of the product. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the last screen and come back here later. So just allow me to just switch to that screen. I have just picked 37 of the titles of Gillette's patents. They have patents for razor blade, razor structure, handle for a razor, shaving razor cartridge, shaving razor cartridge cover, method of manufacture, case for a shaving razor, only a handle, razor components with novel coating, grooming device with eject button displacement of the razor, and so on. So look at all this. They were in two businesses. They were in oral care, that means toothbrushes and toothpaste, and they were in shaving, personal grooming, what they call as. Now just look at the kind of patents that they have filed for. These are 37 select titles. They have more than 2,000 patents. Gillette has more than 2,000 patents. But those patents, see, patents are jurisdictional. That means you cannot have a global patent. We'll see it in one of the other slides which we'll come across. You cannot have a global patent. So if you want a patent in a country, you have to file for patent in that country. So that means for the same product, you may end up having patents from different countries. So there'll be an Indian patent, there will be a European patent, then there will be an American patent. Now Europe is almost like one country when it comes to patents because of something called the Patent Cooperation Treaty. All the European Union countries have a single patent office. Now, these titles of select patents, now you may say, okay, it's so easy to create this, right? Razor blade, razor, but I'm showing you only the title. Now, what you need to see is also an example of the language. Now read this. This is where I had done that micrometer, the micron symbol replacement, which has cropped up in the rest of the document. Can you read this and think whether it is easier or more difficult than double taxation avoidance agreements and transfer pricing? Just look at the language. It is English, but that's all. To make sense of it, it will take forever. And most of us will not be able to make sense of it. Why is the language so complex? It is because it's very simple. As I told you, patent is a monopoly right granted in return for what? For disclosing the secret of how you did that thing. So they are disclosing the secret, but they are making it so difficult to understand that nobody will be able to actually understand this and translate it into a manufactured product. It's very, very difficult. So look at the language. So this is the secret behind why so many companies like to have patents, because they get a monopoly. They can then stop others from operating in that space. So what they call as freedom to operate, or FTO. Other companies don't have the freedom to operate in that space because you have blocked the whole area for them. Why? Because if you do this, that's one of the reasons why Gillette has very few competitors. I'm sure all of you, at least the males among you in the audience, are users of Gillette products. Because it's very difficult to even remember the name of a very big competing product manufacturer. Now let's go back to the earlier slide. Yeah, we were here. So one patent is a brick and many patents are a protective wall. So suppose, for example, one of your clients wants to enter into the space of making shaving blades. Whatever he tries to do, he will first find that Gillette will file a case against him and say, you have protected my patent, you have infringed my patent number, so and so, so and so, so and so. So therefore, they actually build a wall so that nobody else can enter that space around that business. And because they have a monopoly, they can price very high and they can get very good returns, very good return on investment. And it's of course available only for 20 years. So what they will do smartly is at the end of the 20 years, that product which is protected by that patent, they will drop the price. So if you are selling it for $5 somewhere, you will now make it $1. And then file another patent for another different product, which also is going to be difficult to be copied. So they'll have to spend a lot of R&D and on drafting of patents, because drafting of patents will become a big expense for them. So there are very few people who can draft patents because they need to understand English and they need to understand that domain in which they operate. Okay. Now, what did Gillette do? They built a wall around them so that nobody could attack from the outside. Now, there is a story of Canon and Xerox, which is a very interesting twist on this. Canon was a Japanese company which used to dabble in many things, but for the purpose of our story, they were trying to build a personal printer, laser printer which can sit on a desktop. So they wanted to manufacture that. Now that laser printer on a desktop needed a lot of licensing of Xerox's patents. Now Xerox Corporation already had a patent for large Xerox machines. You know, in those days, even now in many offices, you have large Xerox machines which have an attendant, and that attendant will copy for you. Okay, you want 100 copies, chalo main de deta hu. You know, they will serve. It's now happening in most companies, but most of the printing nowadays is done by individuals on the desktop. You do something, you finish the document, you take a printout, look at it, make corrections, take a new printout. So now this would not have been possible to build because when Canon approached Xerox for licensing of their patents, Xerox said nothing doing. We are not interested. So Canon kept quiet and went back. And then they had a brainstorming session in their company where they said, if we can't get a license to get into this business, we don't want to make big machines. We want to make small machines. So let us look at how we can do it in spite of this. So they broke their head and they discovered one thing. And that is, why is Xerox not getting into the space of Canon? Because the product was so complex, the copier, what we call today I call as a Xerox machine, large Xerox machine. That copier was very unreliable because papers would jam, the ink would get over, and all those things. So there had to be one person there to manage it. The average person will always get paper jam, then paper gets finished. All those problems are there. So to actually use it, they needed one person. So therefore, it was economical only for large companies who could afford one person to man the Xerox machine. So that was for Xerox machines. But Canon, what they did was they analyzed that whole situation and they said, that the problem is that they have very unreliable three components. One component is the drum. The other component is the paper movement mechanism. And the third component is the the toner. So they said, now let us look at how we can reduce most of these errors. And 90% of those errors they found was in the toner and in the some 2 or 3 key components. And they said that those key components were prone to failure, prone to get jammed and all those things. So therefore, what they said is, let's think of putting all these 3 components into one cartridge. So they created a concept of a cartridge. Now that cartridge also had a part of the mechanism of movement of paper. It also had the exposure on the selenium drum, and it also had toner. So the whole thing is one single thing. So now if you open the cartridge, if you open a laser printer and you look at the cartridge, that cartridge is what Canon developed. And they said that now this is new, because even though it uses photocopying technology, it does what Xerox does not have is they don't have all the components in one piece. The cartridge is a completely new product or subcomponent. So they patented the cartridge. So when they patented the cartridge, it was done quietly. And in doing that, in many parts of their cartridge, for example, the selenium drum, the toner formula, all those things also they improved upon. And finally, they developed a machine and then went to Xerox again and said, why don't you license to us your patents? Xerox said, humne bola hai aapko na. Why are you coming again and again? They said, because you just look at what you will do. We are getting into the desktop desktop copier space, and in the desktop copier, you will never be able to develop a copier if you don't license it from us, because we have got 30 licenses, 30 patents on making a small personal copier. And if you want to do it, you will never be able to shrink your machine, because then you will infringe our copyright. So they had to talk, and they got a license from Xerox, and they now, for every laser printer that they make, Canon pays a license fee to Xerox. And Xerox is also free to make their own machines, but they have not been very successful in that because they couldn't make it at a cost. Japanese reduced their costs. So that's a different thing. But the point is that what Canon did was they made a portfolio of patents which surrounded the original patent which they wanted a license to. Okay, now from this, you will have understood one thing, that is, you get a patent for something new that you do, but you have to pay for the patent of something new which you are relying on to do this new thing. So for example, I'll give you a simple example. Suppose, let us say you are living in the Stone Age, but there were patent laws. Okay. Now, if you are living in the Stone Age, then let's say you discovered that you can make a 3-legged stool. And that stool would be a nice place for your grandmother to sit and rest. So you make a stool. So that is very good. Now, you can get a patent for that. Now, suppose somebody says that this 3-legged stool is a little shaky. Let's add a 4th leg, then it will become stable. Do you think he will get a patent for that 4-legged stool? No, he will get a patent for the 4th leg of that stool. So he has to license the first 3 legs stool. Now he says it's no use having a stool with 4 legs also. It would be very wonderful if there was a backrest for it. So they made a chair. So that chair cannot be patented because the stool has. Now, if the chair has to be patented, then what you can patent is only the back, not the 4 chairs, not the 4 legs, and not the seat on which you sit. So that is how patents grow. The whole idea of having people disclose their invention openly in their application is that it allows others to improve on it. If you don't disclose, then no improvement will happen. So that's the logic behind patenting. Now, you have understood that Canon, Xerox, Gillette, all these examples show how companies have used patents and patent portfolios to build and add value to their business. Let me give you one quick example again of Google. Google developed search algorithms and developed a way to monetize that search algorithm. Okay, so when they developed a way to monetize that search algorithm, they made a lot of money, billions of dollars very quickly. But they found that there were many companies which are trying to make search engines, and even if though they were not good, they were trying to copy it. So they had kept it a trade secret. How they run their formula, they had kept it a complete trade secret till then. So, but they found that people are still trying to beat them at it. Why? Because they were a small new company. And because they were a small new company, bigger companies like Oracle and all tried to develop search engines. But they didn't succeed like Google. So what Google did was they realized that they think that we have only 1 or 2 patents. So we have to start patenting. So all the new developments, they started patenting. And over a period, their whole product became so complex and so lucrative for Google that they developed a patent portfolio of something like 200 to 250 patents. But 200 to 250 patents was not big enough because they were playing in markets which are global sized. And Motorola alone, for example, had 800 patents. Gillette we saw had thousands. Okay, so what they did was they purchased patents. They bid for companies which were going bankrupt, who were losing out. For example, there was a company called Nortel. Nortel had 900 patents. They bid for those 900 patents. They didn't get it, some other company got it. But you can imagine that why were they buying? Not because those patents were useful, but because if somebody tries to copy your product and then you go and tell him we have 900 patents, it makes a difference from saying we have a patent or we have 10 patents. People are not scared of, they get scared of big numbers. Okay, so 800-pound gorilla, that's how you should appear to them. So there is a big advantage in building a sizable patent portfolio. Now, what happens because everybody is trying to get patents is that sometimes patent thickets develop. Thickets means like so many patents in a small area. Okay, like for example, in the first patent thicket was in the area of sewing machines. Sewing machines have 3 parts, and those 3 parts were novel. And there was a guy called Elias Howe who applied for a patent for the sewing machine. But there was this singer, I forget the initials of that person, who, but he sold machines by that name, sewing machines by that name, Singer sewing machines. He made very good machines, but that guy who claimed patent rights was actually a person who had not really manufactured it. He had developed it, he had developed the concept, but he didn't manufacture it. So he was one of the first, what they call as NPEs, that is non-NPE is what we call as patent trolls. Okay, that means they own the patents, but they don't actually manufacture. They don't work the patents. And because they own the patents, they threaten people with lawsuits for infringement and collect money by way of license fees. So what happened is he started, because many people started making the sewing machine. So this Elias Howe started filing a case against everybody. Now, when he was fighting a case against everybody, he realized that he should win one case, and then it is easier to fight against everybody. So one of the weakest of these companies, he told them I am filing a case against you, filed a case also, and then withdrew the case because this fellow agreed to pay a royalty. Royalty for something which was not even his. So, but the point is that he went to 5 other companies after that and told them, see, I have got royalty from this guy. Now you also better pay me a royalty, otherwise I'll screw your business by going to court. So 5 or 6 others paid. But this singer was made of sterner stuff. He said, go to hell. I'm not going to pay you your royalty. You go and file a case. No problem. I'll fight that case. And what he did is he went and searched for a person who actually searched and looked for a person who had developed those 3 components. See, because the whole sewing machine is not patentable. It's only those 3 components which were patentable. One of those components is a needle with a hole near the pointed edge, not hole at the other end. Okay, so that is useful in that makes it possible to stitch. So he looked for a person who had made these 3 components and combined them. And he found one person because that fellow developed it and then forgot about it. And then he was not successful. He was like an old man, was disappointed with life and all. So this guy goes and tells him that if you make a sewing machine out of this, I will pay you so much. So he said, okay. And then he actually developed a sewing machine there. And then he said, this is the same based on the ideas which I had written down and claimed as patent for 20 years back. So he says that 20 years back, if it has been developed, then this guy, the Hove's patent is invalid because his patent, this guy's patent is much older. So what happened was that patent challenge kind of receded for the time being because the courts accepted that Isaac's that Singer's machine did not infringe Elias Hove's patent. So therefore, that patent challenge got over. But then after that, another problem got created. If there's nobody fighting and enforcing a patent, then anybody and everybody tries to enter the market. So what happened is many people started filing for patents because patent application and patent grant takes a long time, always, because it's very difficult to get a patent application. Sometimes you have to wait 6 years, 7 years before that. So people file a patent and start doing business and claim that it is the new thing. But all of these are infringing and they are all very similar and they impinge on the same area. Okay, so what happens is that in the first time in sewing machines, all the manufacturers of sewing machines came together and said that instead of fighting in court, let's do one thing. Let's all sign a document where we will say, I will take this proportion of royalty, you take that proportion of royalty, etc. And we will share the royalty. So they all came together. So that sharing the royalty is what is happened under something called a cross license. So patent owners cross license the right to use the respective patents, which is called a patent pool. So it's like carpool. How you share a car, like that you share a patent. Okay. Now, after the sewing machines case, there have been many such patents. Now, these patents are patent pools. These patent pools are run by specific organizations. They are like industry associations. So GSM is a patent pool. CDMA is a patent pool. You've heard of these technologies, no? In early days of the mobile. So there are many, many patents. But the most interesting thing is in pharma field. There are many, many patent pools. Because in pharma field, what happens is typically many companies know how to make a product. And all of them claim that they did it first because they have filed patents for it. It's the same thing which happens in every business, but in patents in pharma, it is extremely, what shall we say, contested. Lot of litigation happens because medicines which solve a life and death problem, if you get a monopoly to that, that's a very valuable monopoly. It's not like a sewing machine monopoly. Trademark and service mark. These are the questions 1, 2, 3, 4. The first 4 paragraphs, the first 3 paragraphs. If you answer yes, then you can trademark it so long as the chosen indicia, that means indicators, are accepted as unique. You don't have to make a product to trademark it. You can have a trademark for the product, but you can get the product outsourced. So there's no problem. So you get the trademark for, and what we call as a brand. A brand is a form of trademark. Industrial design is something which many of you might not know. Industrial design is is a dilute form of patent. Patent is for the technical core functional piece. But now if you make a product, the functional element is one thing, the design element is another thing. Today, if you go to a supermarket, let's say you're looking for a kettle to heat water, you will get so many kettle designs. They all have the same thing. No, it's a coil on which the kettle sits, and that coil is electrically powered and becomes hot and heats the water. So this is the functional part. But you don't buy a kettle, electric kettle, for the functional element. You buy it because of it looking good, and therefore you want it looking good in your home, in your kitchen or dining table or wherever you want to keep it. So the design element of it can be protected, especially if it is original. Philips actually designed an electric kettle early in its career, maybe around 1950s. They developed an electric kettle, and it was completely different in design from the existing electric kettles of the time. As different as Nokia phones were from iPhone when it was first introduced. Okay, Nokia phone were full of buttons with a small screen. iPhone was only screen and no buttons. So it was, but both served the same purpose. So same way, they had designed a very beautiful looking kettle and they charged the earth for it. Today we ordered one pressure cooker at home. That pressure cooker is a 2-liter pressure cooker, so that if you want to make very small quantities for only 1 or 2 people, you can use it. But that is so beautiful. It is more expensive than any of the most branded pressure cookers, Prestige, Hawkins, Butterfly, Pigeon, all those brands, no? But you not even have heard of this brand. It's called Garuda. Wonderful design. Now they have a protection for that design. That's why others are not making it that way. It's a very small design, small thing, very beautifully designed. Shining 304 aluminum stainless steel. The best quality stainless steel that you can get. Grade 304. So they have done a beautiful product. Now, pressure cooker is patented, but the design of this pressure cooker will get patented, get protection as an industrial design. Sorry, the computer was on battery, so I just put on the power. Okay, now these 4 questions, if you answer yes, then it can become an industrial design which is worth protecting under the Designs Act. Right. Okay, so now we have covered the introductory portion and we have crossed the halfway mark in terms of timing. So if you want to ask me any question on this, I don't mind stopping for a moment for answering the questions, but otherwise we can continue. Achrekar Sahib, what do you suggest? Should we have a break for questions?
So as you feel right, but if you think if you ask the question and that will get prolonged, then we can keep it towards the end. But Rajesh, if you are comfortable now, then we can do it. As per your convenience, you take the call, sir.
We can do it at the end. I'll try and finish in the next 35-40 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Now, current developments in laws. Now, this current development concept is unlike what you will find used to in the field of tax. In the field of income tax, for example, there are developments which almost happen daily. There is a circular, there is an interpretation, there is a court decision, a high court decision, Supreme Court decision. So many things. Some new form. So all these are new developments or current developments in income tax. Now, in the field of IPR, the developments are not that fast and thick. But if you look over a 15-year period or 20-year period, it has made a very big difference. Some developments made a very big difference. So our time frame looking at current developments is to help you understand how these laws evolve. Okay, so I'll start with patents. Now, these are not recent developments. You'll say, what we are talking of 1970 and all those things. What recently developed? Now, what actually happened was the Patent Act of 1970 was extensively amended in 1998 and then even more extensively amended in 2005. Now, these two amendments were made in steps. The reason is our Patents Act 1970 followed something called a process patent regime. And rest of the world almost followed what is known as the product patent regime. And there was a lot of international pressure brought onto India to switch to product patent regime. They didn't want process patents. So I will explain it to you very shortly what it means. They changed over to the product patent model. India changed over to the product patent model by these two amendments, 1998 and 2005. The major amendment happened in 2005. Okay. Now you know that the Act grants a negative right, which is a monopoly. No one else can infringe the monopoly for 20 years. Okay. Now, in those days, patents were there, but patents were granted on the process followed in developing the product. So, for example, if you are developing, let us say, paracetamol as a tablet, okay. Now, there is some chemistry behind making paracetamol. Okay, so let us say the American company which invented paracetamol made paracetamol in a particular way. In India, there will be a small pharmaceutical company like say Cipla, in those days it was small, Cipla and all those, who would find a way of making the same paracetamol by a different route. That means the formula and the process by which paracetamol is developed would be different. And they would get a patent for it in India. If they got a patent for it in India, then the US company which developed the product patent paracetamol cannot object because they developed it by a different process. So what is invalid as a patent in US would be valid as a patent in India. Okay, so therefore, for many years, and in 1970 Act, this process patents was enshrined. So for many years, nearly 30 years, the Indian pharmaceutical industry had no fear of American and other foreign or EU patents. Why? Because what they did was very simply looked at a product which works and said, we will develop it in a different way. In chemistry, you can do it. It's like chemistry is like cooking. So you just look at YouTube videos on cooking. You can see how many ways you can make omelets, for example. So the same way, you can make the same product in 100 different ways. Or maybe not 100, even if there are 3 different ways, and you make it in a different way compared to the original patent holder in the US, you are safe. As long as you operate in India, you don't sell it abroad. So in those days, India had hardly any exports anyway. So India was a poor country. You know, Garibi Hatao and all the symbols of the slogans of the day. So India got very cheap medicines. Because then the companies which manufactured it, once they manufactured, factory lag gaya unka. So ek line chalu rehta, chalo paracetamol, they'll make the whole day. And everybody's headaches are gone at a very low price. Okay. So they made profits, but they didn't make very much profit because there was a lot of competition, because it was easy to do. So there was no what you call barrier of entering. So it was a low entry barrier industry in India. And that's why companies like, companies headquartered in countries like US and UK and all that could not come to India because their cost structures were much higher than India's cost structure. So therefore they got away with it very cheaply, Indians. So in 2005, the big change happened, and that is the patent regime moved from process patents to product patents, because they were facing a lot of pressure from the TRIPS, that is trade related intellectual property. You know, it was like the UN of IPR. Okay, like what UN does in the Security Council and General Assembly and all that. This TRIPS was an organization set up which did for IPR, which fought for and put pressure on countries which did not follow product patents. So it was an earthquake. This 2005 amendment was an earthquake, but it was an earthquake which people had expected. So companies learned very quickly how to prosper. And then there are lessons. So now the next slide will take us to lessons. In the 30 years from 1970, 35 years from 1970 to 2005, India became the world's pharmacy. I mean, not the world's pharmacy. India became a very prolific manufacturer of medicines, and they attacked all the what you call low-end markets, which means African, sub-Saharan Africa, and all those. You know, India became a big supplier to Africa and South America and all that. Wherever countries did not want to fight India, they allowed, because they got cheap medicines from India. Okay, but there was one company called Ranbaxy. Many of you know it, but it does not exist today. Now Ranbaxy went head to head with Pfizer. Now under the new patent regime, product patents, there was a procedure. Okay, and the procedure was that if you want to challenge a patent or infringe a patent openly, then you have to say why you believe that the patent is not valid, and then go to court and prove it. But while you go to court and prove it, you are building up a bill, and that bill is what? Patent infringement liability. That means if you say, I don't think your patent is valid, I am going to make that product myself, and then you go ahead and make that product yourself, and you make profit on it also, then you are running a very big risk, because if you lose the patent challenge, then your entire profits will be wiped out and more. Your 3 years or 5 years profit will be wiped out. You will have to close business. That much is the amount of fine that is levied for deliberate infringement, because this becomes a case of deliberate infringement. So Ranbaxy was over smart. What they did was, they said we will go by this route. And the two biggest selling products, largest single products with market worth of billions of dollars, were Viagra and Lipitor. Viagra was an erectile dysfunction drug, and Lipitor was an anti-cholesterol drug. Both had huge demand, and the market was in billions of dollars, and they were both made by Pfizer. So these people just attacked Pfizer and said that both these patents are invalid. We believe it is invalid, and therefore we are going to manufacture it. So they gave notice to Ranbaxy that they are going to manufacture it in deliberate infringement of their patents. And then they started manufacturing. But what was the difference? The difference was, Ranbaxy had operations at that time in 38 countries. 38 countries, 41 factories in 38 countries. That is what they had. And they started manufacturing it in all these countries. Now, when they started manufacturing in all these countries, it means that obviously a large part of the market was lost to Pfizer, because Pfizer was the original patent holder of Viagra and Lipitor, and these people started selling to the same markets. They priced it lower than Pfizer, but they said, let's make money quickly and then get out. But what happened was they lost that case. They lost that case heavily, and so heavily that successive companies which have taken over Ranbaxy have suffered from indigestion. Ranbaxy did not tell that this case they have filed and that they are likely to lose. They did not tell Daiichi Sankyo that. Daiichi Sankyo was a Japanese pharmaceutical company which acquired a majority stake, almost 100% stake in Ranbaxy. In 2 steps, they got it 100% in Ranbaxy. That means Ranbaxy now became a Daiichi Sankyo subsidiary, 100% subsidiary. Okay, but as soon as they bought it, within few months, the judgment came, and according to the judgment, Ranbaxy had to pay huge amount of penalty, and these people had already taken the money and run. 10,000 crores they had sold it for. The whole company was sold for 10,000 crores. Okay, and Daiichi Sankyo also was left with the litigation. So Daiichi Sankyo filed a countersuit against these the brothers who owned Ranbaxy, Malvinder and Shivinder Singh, and said that you lied to us and you did not tell us enough about the fact that you are losing the patent. You only showed us how much your profit you were making, and therefore you cheated us. So we want to cancel the deal. So that litigation is still going on, but in the meanwhile, that whole Ranbaxy came to nothing because Daiichi Sankyo could not afford to pay the litigation, infringement penalties. So therefore, they also sold the company, and they sold the company to whom? Sun Pharma. Sun Pharma also got prolonged indigestion. Sun Pharma, at the time it acquired the rump of Ranbaxy that was remaining, they got enough legal papers to say that they will not be liable for any liability, and Daiichi Sankyo swallowed the poison. So Sun Pharma got that company, but they found that Ranbaxy had nothing. Ranbaxy was cheating. They did not even know how to make the products, but you know what they used to do? They used to buy the same products, Pfizer's manufactured product. Let's say if they were Viagra tablets, they bought Viagra tablets quietly from US. They removed all the tablets, made a powder, and that powder they fed into the tablet making machine in a different shape with their name. They printed, they made tablets, and then they presented it to the patent court. There's a special patent court. Presented to the patent court saying that we know how to make this, and then they gave it for testing. That was the same product. They didn't know at all how to do it, but they got 6 months breathing time. They said in 6 months our laboratory will be able to learn how to make it. They were confident about that only. And they cheated. They cheated everybody. They cheated Daiichi Sankyo. They cheated Pfizer and everybody. They got huge penalty paid, and even Sun Pharma and Daiichi Sankyo got indigestion from it. Okay, so effectively Ranbaxy died. And why did they die? Because they tried to make a business model out of a patent infringement. That means they tried to say that patent infringement is our business model. We will challenge patent's validity and deliberately infringe it and make enough money and simultaneously pay off and manage the liabilities. But that they failed in because the liability came to stick. There's another story which you should hear about, which is why you should not infringe patents. And this involves 2 companies, 3M and Johnson & Johnson. 3M was a very small company when this happened. Johnson & Johnson was a big, large pharmaceutical, huge, among the, I think, the top 4 or 5 pharmaceutical companies in the world. But 3M was very strong in patenting, and they were a very innovative company, and they had lots of patents on big and small things. So, for example, many of the stationery items you buy are all 3M. That Post-it note, Then there's two-sided tape. All those things are originally patented by 3M. So what they brought out a product was a new plaster cast for fractures. You know, people wear the cast for fractured hand, fractured legs and all. Okay, now, before the 3M product, people used to use plaster of Paris. And the plaster of Paris was very messy and took long to dry, during which time the person should not move. And it was in only one color, white, and it was very itchy. That means as your fracture healed, the space which it covered inside there, it itches. So anybody who has suffered a fracture will know what I mean. Okay, so 3M invented a new plaster cast which was made out of polyurethane, not plaster of Paris. And that polyurethane cast did not create heat while wearing it. It did not itch. And therefore, it was available in very attractive colors, and it dried within 10 minutes. So all these made it an excellent product. Now Johnson & Johnson used to make the POP casts. They found that that market will go away because this is this has so many advantages. So they copied it. They copied it how? Because a patent had been filed. Patent application had been filed. In the patent, they have explained in detail how they make it. So they learned how to make it and they started their own product. 3M wrote to them and said, you have started manufacturing something which is violating our patent, and therefore we give you the opportunity to talk to us and discuss licensing terms. So we will license it to you at a negotiated value. Johnson & Johnson did not even respond to that. So like that, they wrote 2 or 3 letters, none of which they got responses. Then they did a smart thing. They would patent some small improvements. And then the day they filed for patent for that small improvement, they would start introducing the new product in the market. And they found that Johnson & Johnson also copied that, and within 20 days brought out that same new product. So they had all pharmacy bills and all that for showing that this is how it was. And then they explained to the patent court that said they are deliberately infringing. They didn't answer our letters. These are the copies of our letters. This is copies of the chemist bills where we purchased these different models, which we call them. And yet they are doing it even today. And they have not even responded to our letters. So they were summoned by the patent court, and the patent court levied such a huge fine that Johnson & Johnson, such a giant company, had to disclose nearly zero profits for 2 years. Because the payment was staggered over 2 years, and 2 financial years, their whole, profit and loss account became zero, and the share price plummeted. After that, they adopted a new code of ethics, and they said that we will do ethical business. They learned that ethics is worth following only after burning their fingers, after burning 2 years' profits. Okay, but Ranbaxy was a bad example, but India also had a shining example of how to work within the law, that is of CIPLA. And that brings us to the other major amendment under the India's Patents Act. From 1970 till today, what is the other major amendment? There is a new provision which provides for something called compulsory licensing. And under compulsory licensing, the government says that it allows a third party to produce a patented product or process without the consent of the patent owner, and plans to use the patent product or product itself also. Why will they do it? They will do it because it is a life and death issue. So for example, if there is a very expensive medicine which has been invented which can solve a particular illness, and there are many patients for that illness in India, and that my medicine is either too expensive or not available in enough quantity in India, then the Indian government can actually pass a notification under that particular section called, I think section 13 it is, of the Patents Act 2005, which provides for compulsory licensing, and they can give a license to an Indian company. So earlier, the first Indian company to get a license like that was a company called Natco Pharma, and Cipla was the next firm to get. Now, Cipla used to manufacture, and they had the know-how to manufacture 2 or 3 of the 6 drugs which are part of a cocktail which is given to AIDS patients, and it was very effective. It actually cured AIDS of many patients. But those 6 medicines had to be mixed and had in a particular order as a combination. Without the combination, it doesn't work. Any one of them you remove and it doesn't help AIDS, help treatment. So therefore, those 6 medicines were patented by different companies, Pfizer, Eli Lilly, and another company. So 3 major companies own the patent to these 6 products. Of these 6 products, 3 products Cipla knew how to manufacture. And they found that this product was called Clivex. The Clivex is another case. This product was for AIDS. India had a growing population of AIDS sufferers, but the biggest sufferers were South Africa. So Cipla wrote to the South African ministry, government, and said that more than 50% of your population is already affected by AIDS, and they have a very poor prognosis, and you will have to bear the cost of their health, because AIDS is a long-term disease. People don't die early. They live for many years, and they'll keep getting worse all the time, and they'll become a burden on you. So what you should do is you should make a change in your laws to allow compulsory licensing, and then give us a license. We will make half of those medicines for 1/10 of the cost. So they did that. They passed a law, and South Africa passed a law, and then they granted Cipla rights to manufacture 3 of those drugs, 3 of those 6 drugs, and then they found some other companies which could manufacture the other 3, and they started getting it at 1/100th of the cost. Something which was more than $200 a month came down to less than $1 a month. Huge saving they got. And Cipla was the one who drove them. Now, Cipla is run by a person called Y.K. Hamid, who is the most highly respected person. Even today, I think he must be in his late 80s or early 90s now. Even today, he reads scientific papers in all pharma journals every day and keeps up to date. And under compulsory licensing, what happens is that the company which manufactures that product, which has the patent to that product, they also get fees. So, for example, Cipla paid 12% royalty on that $1. That means they got 12 cents royalty on every tablet sold, every $1 worth of tablets sold. So they made their money, but they did not want to manufacture in scale, and they did not want to manufacture it at low cost, and they wanted a huge amount of profit. So that profit was denied to them. The super profit was denied to them. But overall, it was good, because then India also by then had got this compulsory licensing, and now AIDS sufferers in India now have access to compulsorily licensed AIDS drugs. The entire cocktail is also available in India. It's also available in South Africa. And in India, there are so many companies which can make these drugs now that it has become a big market, and they have become the biggest sellers of AIDS all over the world, AIDS medicines all over the world. Then there was this Clivex case. Novartis was the company which manufactured a medicine called Clivex. They introduced a new product called Clivex, which was a chronic myeloid leukemia, a form of cancer, a cancer drug which was patented by Novartis. Now the entire pharma industry got together to fight Novartis on this. The Indian pharma industry, I'm not talking of foreign, okay, got together to fight Novartis on this. And Novartis basically had another product called imatinib. That imatinib was almost similar, and they gave it a different name and they gave it a different form. That means it's like instead of making it an injection, they gave it in syrup form, something like that. Okay, the mode of delivery they changed. They gave it a pen and all those things. Like how insulin is given by a pen. So like that they changed the product delivery, but it was the same medicine. So they claimed patent for that. Now, why did they claim patent for that? Because this imatinib, if they had a patent and it was valid in India, then why will they make another product? Because the 20 years were almost up. 17 years were up for that imatinib. For the last 17 years, they have been making super profits on imatinib. Now they wanted to extend it. That is what they call as evergreening of patents. So they make a small change and they say, now this is a new product, so give me a patent for this product. So that is how most companies try to extend the life of the patent. Life of the patent is 20 years. But in the 17th year, they start making new products so that by the 20th year, the new product will be established in the market. They'll close the old product. And the new product is also patented. But this patent challenge succeeded. And in 2013 April, the Supreme Court rejected Novartis's view. And they said that this drug, you don't make it in India and you don't want Indians to make it also. But there are so many patients. There are about 100 patients for every one person for whom you manufacture a drug in India or supply it to India. So we need 99 more. So if you can't make it, we will compulsorily license it. They said we will make it. We'll set up a new factory for it. In spite of that, the Supreme Court said no, but it is not meritorious because it is not new. One of the conditions of a new patent to be granted is that there should be some novel step, something new. There's nothing new in this. It's just a modified drug of modified version of an existing drug. And therefore, it was not innovative enough to merit a patent. So today it has become much cheaper. So this is how India is managing in the new economy. That is, they work smarter and they work within the law, but yet they manage to get as many good medicines available as possible. Now, a lot of patents are expensive. The filing fee is expensive. The lawyers' charges are expensive. The charges to fight challenges to patents are expensive. So it's a high cost game. Patenting is a high cost game. In fact, it's extremely expensive. And you have to do it for every country that you want to operate in. So if you are a large company with operations in say 10, 20, 30 or even 40 countries, like Ranbaxy had, then you can amortize that cost over those 40 countries. That is why it is cheap for you to fight. But most companies are not that big. So therefore, what happens is you cannot afford that much. So you partner with universities. In America, it is very common. Universities do the research and they assign the patent which is granted to them in favor of a company which then pays them for that, patent license. Okay, so many universities used to invest in research, and some of the PhD students would make new products. And then they would license it to a pharmaceutical company, and the pharmaceutical company gets assigned rights of that patent. So they are like the owners of the patent, even though they didn't make the product. And then they start manufacturing it and marketing it all over the world at great profits. Okay. So this is what happens in the US quite often. Now here, in 2018, the government decided that our universities also should be encouraged. So therefore, they reduced the fees. They introduced this draft rules of amendment for Patents Act 1970. And these rules are amended mainly due to respect to international application, patent opposition, and some other matters. And some other matters included reducing the rates for patent filing by 80%. That means what used to be 10,000 is now only 2,000. So like that. So it made it cheaper for them to file for patents. Because otherwise, patent filing charges used to be very high. They are still high, but now they have made an exception for universities. In the copyright field, many changes, but the problem with, as I said, with copyright is that it is a weak form of intellectual property because it's so easy to break that copyright. It's so easy to infringe. So Microsoft and Oracle are among the major companies globally which rely on copyrights. So for example, Microsoft does not have a patent on Windows and MS Office. They have copyright on Windows and MS Office. And they have used that. Similarly, Oracle for its enterprise resource planning software has a patent, has a copyright, not a patent. And they license it. So therefore, their sales are through licenses of these products, software products. And they make money from licensing it to various people. Okay. So Microsoft and Oracle have over a period used their financial muscle and their legal muscle and their ability to lobby with governments at the government level, such that now there is a lot more, lot more respect for Microsoft patents. So now today, many of you no longer think of running a pirated copy of Office because Office is now available cheaply, legally. By taking a license for Office 365, you can get all the products of Office in a reasonable price, but you have to pay an annual price for it. That means you have to pay every year. So most of us do that. Nobody any longer bothers too much about trying to use patent in copied software or infringing the copyright. We all pay. Now this is because Microsoft has fought a lot in India behind the scenes, quietly working with NGOs, working with government, and finally getting people to respect their copyright. Oracle has done it the same thing at the corporate level. Most individuals don't buy Oracle products. It's used by only large companies. So for large companies, they have managed to get away with charging a huge royalty, but yet it is good enough value for companies. So therefore they use it. So we have come to almost the end. So now we can open the field to questions. I have finished a little early. So we have 20 minutes or so for questions. Atharva?
Yes, sir.
Hi there.
Hi, sir, I'm here.
Yeah, or Prasad, whoever.
Yeah, sir, I'm here.
So who will, we put it out to everybody. So please ask questions, you'll get answers.
One thing I can suggest is the participants can type in their questions in the chat box, and I will act as an intermediary and ask those questions to you.
Yeah, great. No problem. 1 minute.
So, dear participants, whatever questions you have, please type it in the chat box.
Wait, I have lost my chat box.
Sir, I can see. So, whatever questions come in, I'll
yeah.
There are no questions so far, sir.
No questions so far. That means I have successfully anesthetized everybody.
There is one question that has come in, sir.
Yes.
How does the Competition Act and IPR go hand in hand?
How does the Competition Act and IPR laws go hand in hand?
Right.
Yeah. See, very good question actually. It had not struck me. See, Competition Act seeks to restrict competition and to allow competition and restrictions on competition. Patents or IPR does exact reverse. It grants monopolies, but it grants monopolies, and the consideration for that is that it makes the technology open. And when the technology is open, many more people can actually improve the technology. So that is the advantage of IPR, especially all the legally protected forms of IPR, including trade secrets. But trade secrets is not part of that. Competition Act, what it does is, if people join together, companies join together and control the market, then Competition Act tends to work in a direction that tries to break up this alliance. So both ways, the intention is to ensure more advantages, more technology, more learning, more business. In some cases, granting a monopoly, which is definitely a weak monopoly because you have to defend it and it costs a lot, is a way of improving business, because when you grant that monopoly for consideration of disclosing how you got that monopoly, then other people can pay you a small sum and actually get the advantage. That is what IPR does. In competition law, it's like breaking up. It's like antitrust in the US. In the US, AT&T became a very large monopoly in the telecom business. So they broke it up and made some 5 or 6 different companies out of it. And each of those companies started operating in specific geographic areas as the majority. So that helped the telecom sector in America and brought down the costs of telecom networks. So same way here, we have seen how CIPLA has used the compulsory licensing route, how so many others have used IPR route for benefiting the country. So Competition Act and IPR actually look like they oppose each other, but they have the same objective. So they basically want to remove all distortions in the economy and allow competition and allow benefits to percolate to the maximum number of people. So that's what the whole objective is. Any other question?
No other question. Yes, sir. We have one more question, follow-up question from the same member. If a company has patent, can it allow licensing to certain companies discriminatory? Would it not create oligopolies or near oligopoly situations?
That's another question. It brings up one point which I said that we have not picked up. There's something called FRAND, fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory. The short form is FRAND, F-R-A-N-D. So your licensing and royalties, etc., should be on a fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory basis. And if it is following the FRAND principles, then the licensing will be allowed. Otherwise, it does create oligopolies. For example, just imagine if there is McDonald's which has 10 franchisees who pay a particular, let us say per burger they paid $5 extra, and other 10 franchisees are there who don't even pay $2. Now, it is McDonald's burgers. These franchises operate in the same market, but one gets it at $2, the other gets it at $5. Who will lose? The $5 guy will lose, right? So he will say, how can you charge me more? You have to be reasonable. You have to be non-discriminatory. There is no reason why I am paying $5 and the other franchisee is paying $2. So he can bring it up and he can go to court and he can use the FRAND principles as the basis for getting a better treatment. Very good question. Thanks, Vaibhav.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm waiting. Let's wait for a couple of minutes to see if there are any more questions.
Yeah. Anyway, you did not commit the crime of starting early, and I did not commit the crime of ending late. So therefore, we are both blame-free.
Yes, absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. I left some 10-15 questions, minutes for questions,
right?
But I didn't think it would finish so early. Right. But there are lots of these stories which go to actually establish concepts in the mind. I hope this storytelling approach worked for you guys. So
Yes,
please
sir,
give me
absolutely.
feedback
Absolutely,
so
sir.
that I can do course correction in future courses, if at all. Thank you very much. Hi, Swapnil.
Hi, sir. Thank you so much for coming on such short notice.
No, I can't. There's too much of echo.
Sorry, sir.
No, there's too much of echo, Swapnil. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I think you are also logged in and you're near another machine.
Yeah, I think so it will be better. We just want to thank you, sir, for coming on such short notice, and we really love the all the knowledge that you shared today, because I am completely naive in this subject, but we had a good exposure and a good start on this subject.
Okay,
Shivani
is saying that due to lack of knowledge on our part, we have no questions. My God, I don't know whether it's a good thing or not, because now you have knowledge. The questions that came were very good because they brought out concepts which I had skipped.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
The paucity of time, I mean, you will have to restrict the content, but still you had a wonderful coverage, sir. And we just want to thank you again, sir. Thank you so much for being here with us. We'll trouble you, and we promise you we'll trouble you again in the future, sir.
Oh yes, no problems.
And if
Only give me a little more notice than you gave me this time.
Sure, sir. If any question comes up, we'll definitely mail it to you, sir.
Okay. Yeah, mail it to me. That's good. I'll respond to them.
Yes,
yeah.
Sir.
And if you could give me access to the recording of this session, then it will help me introspect on what I did right and wrong.
We will do that, sir. We will do that.
Send me a link. Thank you very much to all of you. And I hope now every time you look at your mangoes from your home districts, you'll remember intellectual property in the form of geographical indications.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. I'll just take a few minutes more of your time. I would like to call on screen the Vice Chairman of Thane branch of ICI, CA Rajesh Sharma, to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you very much.
Rajesh sir, you can take over.
Hello, Naveen ji.
Just a second, sir. I just need to see.
No problem, yeah. I'm still within my contracted time.
He is muted. Just a second, sir.
Thank you, Adar.
So sorry, sir. So sorry.
It's okay, no problem at all. Hi, Rajesh, sir. This is Rajnish. How are you, sir?
Hi. Very good, very good. Nice to make your acquaintance.
Yes, sir. It's my pleasure that I've been, allowed to propose the vote of thanks. So, sir, thank you so much for, putting forth your knowledge amongst us. We don't have so much knowledge upon this subject. And certainly, after a couple of lectures, we would be also having more questions, as Shivani Agrawal also mentioned. And thank you to the Thane MCM, Thane branch, and all the participants.
Give me just 1 minute.
Yes, sir, please, sir.
Yeah, well, I would have actually been glad to cover possible areas where chartered accountants can actually make some money.
Certainly, certainly.
But I thought that it will probably get covered by tomorrow's speaker, so I did not want to go into that territory.
That's so nice of you, sir. It's a very humble approach at your end, sir. So formally, I propose the vote of thanks, sir, and to you and all the participants also to join us for this wonderful session. And in the first session itself, there are more than, I think, 120 participants. There were more than 120 participants today.
Wonderful.
And this has been really great to start with this topic. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. I'm not very comfortable in online medium because I can't see. The tactile feel that you get in a classroom is not there. But yet, it was so well organized by all of you. So therefore, I didn't feel anything really bad.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm now in danger of getting used to online medium.
It is very addictive, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. We really had an enjoyable session. I think the participant count speaks for about the session in itself. Just one last few small announcements I need to make to the participants.
Go ahead.
Today's session concludes just the first half of our total IPR sessions. We still have one more session tomorrow morning. As usual, we'll be starting sharp at 10 a.m. The session speaker is Advocate Rutuja Fadke, and she will be speaking on the recent case laws and practical uses of IPR. So I hope to see the same vigor and same zeal tomorrow morning as well. Thank you so much, everyone. This is just half time. If I have to talk in football terms, it's just half time of our total event. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. It has been a wonderful session, and it has been a pleasure to host you today at Thane branch.
Okay, thank you. I'll sign off now.
Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Good night.